Welcome to this month's segment of Female and Fabulous with myself, Karen, the community manager here at Illuminate. We are so excited that we are still continuing on this topic about personal brand, your very well-loved topic. And today's guests are no strangers to the topic of personal brand and reinvention. They are my two best friends, and they come from the entertainment background and now to the corporate world. I wanted to introduce to you May and Choy. Welcome to the show.
Wow, it's an honor to be interviewed by our best friend.
I know. Who knew, right?
Full circle. So, ladies,
Yeah.
before we begin, would love to ask you, for those who don't know you personally, give us your 30-second elevator pitch of what you've done and also your current roles, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Choy. I am a travel aficionado. I've been working in the tourism industry for over a decade now. I would say since 2012, so about 13 years in tourism. I love it. It's a very big passion of mine. I'm also very much involved with community tourism on a volunteer basis year on year. And I used to be in the entertainment industry. So I used to work in front of the camera and now I work behind the camera. And it's nice to bring those front of end experience now to the back end of things. So that's me.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is May, Choy's twin. Similar background as well. I come from an entertainment background. I started off my career in Kuala Lumpur. I modeled for around 2 years around Southeast Asia. I was based in Bangkok, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and then in Singapore briefly, and then KL, and then we got scouted. And then eventually Choy and I moved to Singapore to start our career in television. And that kind of stayed on with us for about, I would say, a good decade or so, 15 years. And now, like Choy, even though I am a lot more of a baby in the corporate world, I joined the M&B sector 2.5 years ago. So right now I'm a sales manager at a hospitality group here in Singapore.
Amazing. We cannot wait to hear about your journey as I go through the questions that we have. So, ladies, let's start off with from Spotlight to Reset. When you both first started out in Singapore, it was for being MTV VJs for Double Trouble. That was all about energy and spotlight and connecting to youth culture. Now, when that chapter ended, what was the emotional and identity shift for you guys personally as well as professionally?
I would say it took, if I want to say in 2025 verbiage, it took a huge toll on us mentally, me as well, personally. 20 years ago, a lot of the mind has shifted a lot, perception, right, in 20 years in how we view ourselves as people. But 20 years ago, unfortunately or fortunately, our self-worth was based on how popular we were, how beautiful we were, how slim we were, how adored we were. So to imagine, we were pushed on this trajectory of fame very quickly. Within 2 months, we were known all over Southeast Asia, in fact, some parts of the UK. We were adored, we were loved, we were worshipped. And imagine what that does to one's ego and oneself as a very young, impressionable, naive 24-year-old. Now imagine riding on this crazy roller coaster of fame, and then suddenly within a year it's taken away from you. And suddenly you are just nothing. You're no longer visible to the world. Somehow your worth is no longer as valuable because you're no longer associated with a particular brand on television, which was MTV, as you guys know, back in the day was a big brand. It took a huge toll on me personally. I remembered that was the first time in my life I think I ever felt my ego shatter, like absolute shatter. I was in this world of celebrity. We were interviewing celebs, singers, actors, you name it, hanging out with all these people. And I remember it got so badly into my head. I'm so embarrassed to even say this now. I think Choy knows where I'm going to go. I remember we had stopped working, and we obviously also lost some money from that, and we were trying to live on a budget. And I remember saying to Choy, I could never take a bus. It's not me to take a bus. So when I think back now, I'm so embarrassed to think that way. But yeah, you can imagine the sort of shift, that change, just coming from this life of celebrity, and then your world came crashing down, which I think was a good thing in the end because it was a huge awakening in humility for Choy and I. Professionally, also took a toll on us because, again, back then, it was MTV was the ultimate job in the world back then, especially in this part of Southeast Asia. We looked up to people like Denise Kelly and Art. they were like the celebrities of our era. So professionally, I think we just never ever regained any traction from that ever since. We still stayed in the scene, but we never ever regained that sort of level of fame again. Yeah, massive hit on us. And Choy can take the lead on how you felt.
You said what basically was on my mind was just an absolute shatter of an ego, because you come to this space and you think you're going to be on this trajectory for 2 or 3 years at least. It was the shelf life of an MTV VJ back then, but things shifted and we were actually made redundant. I'm not sure whether we actually officially came out and said this story. Maybe it's official.
No, we can say it now. It's 19 years later. I don't think anyone's gonna judge us for that.
And we were the first ones in, so they kicked the first ones to kick out. So we only were there for a good year. We uprooted our life and we expected all these things. And the ego was, you can't help it if you're in that space. And nowadays, I think in industry, especially now, they're trying to advocate for when child stars, when they get stuck into TV, they need to have a group of therapists available to them, psychologists, a community to support them on this trajectory, because it's actually very unhealthy. And now with the advent of social media, they actually suffer fools gladly more, because you've got that public feedback happening that could be very negative and very positive. Sometimes one negative comment versus 10 positive comments, it can shatter you immediately. So we were saved in a way from that onset of the social media coming at us, but the blogs were starting back then. So there would be the odd comments here and there. But it was very hard. And like I said, self-worth back then was very much on the physical, what you could give as a talent, how you look was and all this thing. And when that finished for us, you just thought, what's the next step? What can I do? We mean, we're both educated. I've got 2 degrees. May has 1 degree herself. We thought, how can we restart again? And we thought the entertainment field was the only option at the time. So we had to come down from this cloud of dust, of fame dust. And I would say for me, how it affected me also personally is that just shortly after that, I felt when MTV ended for us, May began a relationship with a man who is now her ex-husband, but she went off and got married. So she went straight from that MTV TV identity into the role of a wife and mother. So she escaped that brunt in a sense, but went into this maternal wife role. And I was left behind. And that really hurt me. I know that was this question so related to the same thing.
Of course, that is the second question. Yes, as you guys were seen as a unit, and how did you branch out to individual brands after that?
I would say it took a while, because like for me personally, when she got married, she was 27, right, when you got married. And up to that point, we were this May and Choy unit. Identity was May and Choy, even in the entertainment field and whatever we did. So if I walked into a room, they're like, where's May? And then when she walked with Choy, it was almost expected. And then it was that extra X factor when you have a pair of twins come in and have the same effect. But it was very hard for me, because I felt like she left me behind. I was left on my own to think, how am I going to move forward with myself? But in hindsight, it was such a great lesson in identity. And I think now that we're in this age of this verbiage, I go for personal therapy. So I talk about this a lot with my own therapist and with friends around me. We're doing all this psychology analogy. I think it was very good that she actually left me. So it helped me develop my sense of identity, who I am, where I belong, what are my strengths, what I need to do. So that I would say that her marriage was that kickstart to self-development. So I was actually on my own for a while. I think I was alone for 3 or 4 years, single, in my own place. I started working in the corporate world, because let's be honest, by the time 2008 came, the gigs had dried up very much. Back then we had actual gigs, productions, production houses, movies, TV shows.
Television and all.
Very content creator led, right? Now the content we are absorbing, but back then it was actually proper productions, and those dried up. And endorsements used to be a very big thing. We used to get contracts that would be 5 figures a year and great money. So the checks dried up. We had no money. I started working part-time for a friend's wedding shop. I worked for a wedding shop to make ends meet, just to earn some part-time money. And she was
cupcakes too.
I started baking cupcakes. I started my baking business back in the day, just to get some kind of income rolling in. And I was suffering, and I was in an abusive relationship. So it was just such a crappy time, to be honest. And once that relationship finished and I was then on my own, I decided, you know what, Choy, it's time to take responsibility for yourself. No one is responsible but you. That guy left me in so much debt that my parents had to help me out of that. But I remember once that was cleared, I'm like, start working. I actually was very lucky. And I have to when I look back on my life and my own corporate career, I've never really had to hunt for my jobs. The jobs
Mhm.
always came to me. So whether it's by divine grace that I've been given this, or what I was putting out for myself energetically to the universe, I felt like I got blessed back with it. So this guy offered me a job. It total peanuts. But it was an entry point. And I thought, and it was like for a marketing company. I thought, you know what, I'll get my start somewhere. I was a creative person in front of the camera. Maybe I can be creative behind the camera and see how that leads me to go where. Offered me a job, very little money, but it was my foray into the corporate world. And then I quit after 6 months because I couldn't stand the guy. And prior to quitting, a friend of mine at Hewlett Packard hired me to be his marketing person. He said, all I need you to do is do some marketing activity for me and arrange incentive trips for me. And that's the start of when the travel bug bit me. So I used to arrange these amazing holidays for our high performing sellers. So I got to go to, my first trip was to South Africa for the World Cup 2010. And then I got to go to San Francisco. I got to go to Vienna, Austria. It was just that, it's the thing that bit me.
You imagine I'm heavily pregnant with my child, and she's telling me, I'm here and I'm there, and I'm just like, I was so envious of her at the time.
I'm still on a plane now, but way more often. But that was my take of the travel bug. And then just before the end of my time with HP, a contact of mine in a travel company, they call the Travel Corporation. They manage big brands like Trafalgar, Kentucky, Inside Vacations, you know what. And he called me and said, look, I'm looking for a PR and social media person to join my company. And I was really taken aback because I was like, I have no PR experience. I studied public relations in university, but who remembers stuff from 10 years ago? And I was so intimidated because I was used to being in front of the screen and people soliciting me for interviews or soliciting me to do things. And now I have to be that one to be brave to ask people or pitch an idea or get people to be convinced about my products and my services. So I was like, okay, if you hire me, give me a chance. And I did share this with May because now May just started her foray into corporate. I'm very proud of her story. I can't wait for her to share her story with you. And when I started, I felt very stupid. I felt really stupid. I felt I don't know. I said, I don't know if I can do this. And I think it's just the inner voice telling you your self-worth was so low because I started late. So I started corporate at the age of 29, which is late for some, I guess, for some people, but I always feel life is never too late for anything. So I started working for him. And I remember he told me, you need to get us into the streets. It was my first gig to achieve. And I was so scared because apparently Straits Times were like, no, we don't do brands. We don't cover travel brands. We only cover experiences and don't expect so many branding in the byline. And I remember after 1 year, I achieved that. And their PR agency they hired didn't even achieve that. And I think about 18 months in then, and I felt, you know what? I got this. So I would say that's my foray into then building my own personal brand within the tourism and travel industry. And I'm quite proud to say that even till today, I've had some breaks in between travel and whatnot, but people still remember me, not in my industry about the work I do for travel, not so much the MTV persona. So it's really nice. Yeah.
That's awesome, Choy. Thank you so much for sharing because it's so wonderful to see how much you have grown and how much you're thriving now. And it's so beautiful as a friend of 20 years to see that. Thank you for sharing our story. How about you, May?
I started my corporate career very late. I started at the age of 41. Took
Never
me a
too
long
late.
time to get. Sorry?
Never too late.
Never too late. So this for all the ladies out there. Never too late to restart your life, to change your life up. So like Choy mentioned, not long after we were made redundant, and then I started dating my ex-husband now, and literally went on the express lane of marriage, motherhood, wife. So I did that for, I think I was doing that for 12 years, completely dived into it. In fact, I was so envious of Choy at one point, but in a nice, healthy way, not in a bad way. But I really immersed myself into motherhood. I was very involved with my children. I was very hands-on raising them. But at the same time, always a little bit envious watching Choy do what she did. And I remember thinking, like, at one point going, I feel very stupid. I was basically raising girls, and the conversations with them every day was, have you pooped? Have you eaten? Have you go to bed? Your language is so simplified in those years. And I wasn't really having many sort of adult conversations. And in fact, I never got into it till about 3 years ago. So my jump into it was recent. As you all know, I went through a very terrible divorce and custody battle with my children. And it led to my children moving overseas with their father. So the identity then was really tough, not just as of course, the shifting of May and Choy was easy for me because I went from May and Choy to May and husband, and then Leah Lancy and his mom. And then
I would say that period, May didn't have time to really be May. I had time to develop. She just started this journey of becoming May for real in 2021. I would say 2022.
2022. So after the custody battle was over, I lost myself. And that one I would say is a massive, more crazier loss of identity as a mother. Can you imagine you're raising your kids every day for 12 years and suddenly one day you're not doing that anymore? So for 8 months, I was jobless and literally nothing to do. I was like, what do I do now? I'm not a mommy anymore. What should I do? What should I do? But behind the scenes, and this is something Choy brought up to me eventually. So I thought, you know what, May, you need a job. You need something to ground you because I can't just stay at home every day and stare at the four walls and cry. And I was going through depression, going through anxiety and everything. Job hunting like crazy. But it's funny, like Choy says, the roles I've had now, I've never had to hunt, which is very funny. But prior to that, I was hunting I was going on LinkedIn and just applying for any job I could see. Any job, school admin, anything that's got nothing to do with me, but I thought I have the skill set, I can talk to people, I'll do anything. No one called me back in those, I think, 40 odd jobs I applied for. And then suddenly one day, my current husband, bless him, he's my hype man, happened to be on a work trip in Western Australia and sat next to a guy that runs the marketing for a truffle farm. And my husband starts hyping me up and says, oh, you should come to Singapore because my wife knows everybody. And I was like, what? She knows everybody. She can show you around. She knows all the chefs. She can help you sell. She can be a content creator for your truffle. And because at that period of my life, my morale was so low about my self-worth because of everything I had gone through with the divorce and the marriage and everything. I looked at my husband going, are you kidding? Who are you talking about? This person you're talking about or manifesting does not exist. And he said, oh, babe, I have total faith in you. I guess obviously my husband saw something in me that I couldn't see. So prior to all this, I started really, wouldn't say in the corporate F&B, but I would say COVID was when I was starting to really love dining out because at that time, none of us could travel. So we all just ate. All we did was spend our money going out to eat, to drink. And I was already starting to develop some really nice friendships with the restaurants, with the chefs. Some are becoming personal friends. But to me, that's just me making friends. That's how I viewed it. And the truffle guy finally came to Singapore. And then my husband goes, all right, you got to show him around now. And I'm like, what do you mean show him around? I don't know what you're talking about. He's just go and set meetings up with your chef friends and him. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm there like texting my friends, hey, are you free to meet this truffle guy like from Australia? I'm like, I had nothing to do with the business side of things. And then my husband happened to have a meeting that night. He's like, you go have a meeting with this guy. And I went, I don't even know him. What do you want me to do? But then we met and we got along really well. And I basically arranged 4 or 5 meetings with him with all the Michelin restaurants here of the chefs I knew. And then I remember we walked into one particular very popular Michelin restaurant here. And I don't personally know the chef, but I walked in anyway. And I said, oh, can I speak to this person? And then we managed to speak to him. And then the guy managed to talk business. And then before we left, this restaurant is known to have a 3-month waiting list. And I managed to get a reservation in 2 weeks. I just spoke to the guy. And I remembered after that, the truffle guy sat me down and went, Miss May Wan, do you want a job? And I went, what are you talking about? Yeah, I think you'd be great at sales. I think you'd be great. And I went, I am not a salesperson. Like, I'm so far from being a salesperson. Because Choy says, I'm so used to being in front of the camera. I'm so used to being given a script. I'm very used to projecting my voice. I know how to connect with audiences. But to convince someone to buy something? No. And he went, no, May, I saw a salesperson back there. And I went, what are you talking about? He went, you walked in and got a reservation in 2 weeks. Now that is sales. And I just went, really? And then I realized at the time, I think I must have had massive imposter syndrome because I never saw myself like that. And I remember during those 2 days, this guy kept offering me a job. He said, I would love to give you a job. And I went, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know about truffle. And I'm talking the mushrooms, yeah, not the chocolates, just to be clear for the group. Some people might think it's chocolate. I'm talking about the ones you shave, the fancy ones. I had no idea. Now I know everything about them. And then I remember he said to me, look, I'd love to give you a job, but I think you need experience first. So then we went to a meeting at my first corporate job, the company first. I just tagged along just as a friend. I didn't tag along to do anything. And I remember sitting across from my ex-boss and they were all talking shop. And I was just sitting there going, And then I heard them say, oh, they need a marketing person. They need to hire someone. And then we left that meeting. And then before the truffle guy went home, he sat me down, had a beer with me. He says, May, I really think you need this job. I think you're an amazing person. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And again, remember, my morale was very low. He said, you walk into a restaurant, May, you greet everybody from the front of house to the wait staff, to the chef, to the back of house. You walk in and know everybody. And I'm like, and I'm in my mind, I'm like, I'm just being friendly. And he says, no, I think you have a potential. So I'm going to write you a letter of recommendation to this guy to hire you because I think you'd be amazing. I remember calling Choy going, he says, no, he notices things about me. And Choy's like, May, I could never do what you do. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, May, you walk into a restaurant, you know everybody's name. You care about everybody. From the bellboy to the cleaner, the janitor, to everyone. And not everyone has that skill set. And I went, that's a skill set? I didn't know. Again, I never view myself like that in that sort of way, right? That this can be actually a superpower.
I guess the story for your listeners as well is to say is what you think is a normal everyday skill that you have at home, that could be your superpower. And you can take that and apply that into a work situation and make that work for you. And that's the lesson that May learned. And I told her, you do. You have that camaraderie. You walk in, you are friendly. But I think importantly, it's the ability of the networking. And he saw that.
Which I didn't realize.
Yeah, I didn't. Home and you sit there and you're like, I don't have. But what if you're a great time manager? What if you are that woman that is so particular about your kids' scheduling to the number and the T? That's fantastic time management. That's something that you can take and apply into a work situation. You're creating all these creative games for your kids to play with. You can think about how to create this thing, increase thing. You're an artist. You can think of how to.
Again, remember, my self-worth was very low. My first marriage was not great. So the mindset, the mental health of me at the time was not great. So you have to understand these are skills I now really recognize and I'm actually very proud of. But back then, it was you that pointed out, and my friend Darian, who I adore to this day, and we're still great friends. I always thank him for my corporate journey. So then he wrote a letter of recommendation, and within a week or two, I got an interview. And I remember the guys pitched something to me. Tell me what you would do with my restaurant. And then I just told him what I thought. And I don't think my pitch was great. In my mind, again, imposter. And he just went, that's actually interesting. And I went, what? And then a week later, I remember that particular day, I was having a really bad mental health day, the worst I ever had. I was crying. And then sometimes I feel like God comes knocking on your door when you're at your absolute lowest. And then I heard the words, I'd like to give you a job offer. And I remember just crying after that. And they said that initially the role was for a marketing role, but I was like, guys, I have no marketing experience. Like, I'm zero. But he said, I want you to shine. So you're going to take care of our events and partnerships division, which I went, oh, that's kind of me. So what I do mostly now in F&B is I'm in event sales. And I think, again, being in front of the camera and hosting for events actually was very helpful in my current role. I'm now behind the scenes. But just because I didn't run events doesn't mean I wasn't observing. I was hosting events for 20 years. You do pick up some skill sets there. And that's how my journey started. I stayed with this company for 2 years, and then I was headhunted into my current company. And that's a damn good feeling. When somebody actually notice how good you are in your job, and they're like, you know what, we want you. So I've been in F&B now for 2.5 years. Getting a bit teary here, guys, because this is a real journey for me. I actually absolutely love what I do. I sometimes, when I've closed a lot of sales and I will show Choy the screenshot and go, you got it, girl. Like, I'm not surprised you can do this. But again, I think I'm way past the imposter syndrome now. And I now know how to recognize my skill sets. And I realize not everyone can.
When you were low until this exuding confidence now that you have.
The exuding confidence, I would say, probably came at the end of 2023 to early 2024, when I realized not everyone can do what I'm doing. That is something, and it's not coming from ego or arrogance. Really,
It's identifying your
hard.
strength. Yeah.
It's hard to be a people person. Not everyone can be a people person, and not everyone can. I'm all about fostering relationships, and that's why I still have great relationships to this day with all my friends in the F&B industry. I don't know how to tell you because I've never gotten into the psychology of it, but all I know myself is I've always been authentic in connecting with them. I care about them. I care about the food. I care about the experience. And I think F&B just became so natural to me because Karen I love to cook. I love to cook. I love to entertain. I love making people happy. I love making people smile. And I always feel food brings people together. So I always love seeing people around a table, eating, drinking, laughing. And then for me to sell that, I'm like, this is perfect. So now I'm taking care of the wedding arm for my current company. And it's a lot. As you all know, I just got remarried last year. So I take what I love so much in my wedding and I apply that now to my clients. And it's just about authentic connection. You want to plan a special day for your clients. You want to make sure they feel special and taken care of and ensure the days goes by smoothly because that's what happened to you. So that's what I've applied in my life. So for anyone listening out there, I can tell you it's never too late to start again. And I can tell you, even though sometimes I'm now, we're 44 this year, and I still feel so young in my role. Sometimes I feel like, oh, why wasn't I at this certain level? Sometimes, obviously, I'm surrounded by a lot of C-suites who are already my age. But I know that this is all part of growth. And I know that my children are learning from this. They're like, oh, wow, mommy was mommy, but now mommy's this powerhouse. She's bringing in all the sales. She's doing all these great events. And it's a nice transition for my children to see, not just to see me in one view and go, oh, she's just a mom and all she does is lunch boxes. But now they're like, oh, mom does this and mom does that. So yeah, that was my identity shift. So now it's so nice. Yeah, don't get me wrong. To this day, we're still recognized, Choy and I. Even the other day, at the airport, a fan came up to me and said, I named my child after you. And I was still flabbergasted after 20 over years yeah, in the industry. And I was like, wait, you still recognize you did that? That's always very nice. I would never take for granted when people still recognize us from what we did. But I take so much pleasure when I hear people talking about the work I do in my industry and to hear from my own peers. It's a damn nice feeling. So it's so nice to have, we're May and Choy, but it's so nice, honestly, now to have that own brand identity where we're not tied to each other. So we are never compared. Like before we were modeling, it would say one was prettier, one was fatter, one was skinnier, one was like nicer ones. We always had that comparison, which was not the healthiest. But now we're in our own identity, in our own shifts. I think it's freaking amazing that we're known separately for different things we do.
When I want to hold an event, I just call her for one of her restaurants, which I did recently.
Win-win. That's amazing.
Win-win. It's very nice, very supportive. Yes.
Yeah.
That was a long bit, but we had to explain that part.
Honestly, we know also your journey, May. Thank you so much for being so honest. I think a lot of the community would not have heard your very personal journey. So thank you for sharing that. And it's really inspiring how much you've come. It is, gosh, emotional as a best friend to see how much you
I know I'm a bit emotional now, but honestly, the job saved me.
Yeah.
It saved me. I even told my ex-boss, you have no idea how much you saved me. So the job saved me from a lot of things. But again, like Choy, when I started, I remember calling her, hey, do you feel stupid? I feel so stupid. I don't know what everyone's talking about. I don't know these terms. It's called LOTJ, learn on the job. A lot of what I do is learn on the job. And I'm still learning,
right?
Yeah. And it's so nice to, in fact, I'm able to now, I can call my friends and I feel like I've grown. I'm not just talking to you about my children in the diapers. I'm talking to you in corporate lingo, which makes me feel good about myself. It's just more of my personal accomplishments that I actually understand stuff now. And sometimes even my own husband, who's been with me for 5 years now, he saw me grow in the last 5 years. And sometimes he catch me in conversation and go, how did you know that? He went, my wife is leveling up. I love it. So it's nice. It's so nice it's just about leveling up. Whether you do corporate first and then motherhood later, you still level up in different ways. Because I know you, Karen, you are Miss Corporate. and then you went into mommy. So you still level up. There's no changes. It's just there's no
Your
set timeline or age to start where and where.
Totally.
Yeah. And I
And
feel,
I was just gonna say,
sorry?
what you both have said about that you haven't really needed to hunt for jobs. I don't know if I agree with that, because all throughout what you do on a daily basis, ladies, is all you're projecting your energy, and it's chemistry and connection and manifesting. And I really do really feel that even though you didn't realize it, you were always projecting the next role, and then
Maybe we're living in a moment of gratitude and prayer. Like maybe these are things, yeah, I know, I get what you mean. I think when Choy says, oh, I never really felt like I had to hunt, what she says is that we never felt like we had to go for 40 interviews and meet 40 companies and then sit down, go through the painful process of it's just all something I'm very sorry, I'm fiddling around because my laptop is dying and I need to put this in the charger. I'm so sorry, guys. This is so not glamorous. Yeah.
honest. I would like to say that I don't want it to seem like I just sat back on my chair and just things fell in my lap. It's not that. I really am very grateful for all the opportunities that have come my way that I never come my way. And I don't know whether it's by luck, by fate, by energy or whatever, or just basically relationships early on in life. People hear about you and people seek you. And I felt very lucky for that. I know some women have a hard time. I know some women have to hustle and look and hunt and find the next meal, find the next paycheck. Everybody's journey is very subjective. And I cannot say for one that mine may resonate with another woman. But I know the struggle to make a life for yourself and make an identity for yourself. And I started out early in my first corporate jobs. I'm not making much money. When I got that corporate job, suddenly I had offers to do radio. I had offers to do more cupcakes. I had offers to do more gigs. It's almost as though putting myself out there in this small corporate space gave me that chance to also take on other avenues of income.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm very most proud of at that period of my life when I was single and living alone in a very, remember my lovely flat in Balestier, the little shop house upstairs. So cheap, the rent was so cheap. But I remember thinking one day to myself, I was sitting in Venus Square having dinner, simple dinner, fishball noodles. My dry cleaning was in the trolley. I had groceries in there. I feel emotional saying this. I was young at the time and single when I was doing it. And I told myself, thank you, God. I'm able to feed myself and I'm able to look after myself. And I think that's
Yeah. This is
amen.
something I would say that to most women. It's so nice to do something for yourself.
As long as you earn what you think is subjective and fits your lifestyle, and you are responsible for your own life, you can look after yourself and you can grow. I think women now should learn how to invest and grow their abundance and their wealth. That's one thing I want to learn more of. But you can look after yourself and sit in that contentment and that gratitude. That's already a very big thing for you, especially for me at that age, late 20s. I thought I'd be somewhere by now. I wasn't. In that moment, it was so simple, but I was so goddamn grateful for it. And I like to think I have tried to stay and keep that memory of gratitude with me always. So that even though now life is obviously improved a lot more, things are a little better, but I always try to remember that moment to keep me grounded and to keep me rooted.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Ladies, I'm just so thankful for your honesty and also your advice. We've got a few questions from the floor that I wanted to bring it back to you and ask you. So the first one from the community is, what would you say now looking back about the ingredients for where you are today?
Sheer grit, just fighting the strength to just get up and do it. And sometimes you feel you're just near the end. You just got to find and hold on to a moment and just pull yourself out of it. It's really not easy. And I can tell you, I'm an expert in that, as you both know. It was never easy for me to get out of bed. I remember not showering for 3 days. And there were points where I wasn't showering for 3 days and just crying and reminiscing. And then one day, suddenly I need to get up and do something for myself. So I don't know where I find it from. It's just sheer grit. Just get up and do it. I can tell you there is always light at the end of the tunnel, for sure, 100%. It's just finding yourself to come out from the darkness. And of course, surrounding yourself by a very healthy community of friends and family, which I had in Choy and in my husband and friends and you. Someone who goes to say, it's not the end. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of ingredients from it because sometimes I just don't feel like I am that much of an expert to tell you, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that, and self-love and whatever. For me, it was just grit.
I never sat down and really contemplate what it took. I just somehow imagine a cauldron and I'm just throwing stuff in there and smoke comes out and then this is Choy now. I would say I think it's good to always be curious. To make
Yes.
things a little bit lighter, I think it's good to be curious. I think it's very good to keep asking questions, learning and upgrading your skills. And I think it's also good to have a mentor. You have to have mentors in place so that you are learning from them. And those mentors, some people actively seek like a life coach, which I think it's very helpful, or they actively seek a mentor. I say this too, and I'm very grateful. I've had mentors that just have appeared in my life and been part of my life. And I always ask them questions and get their opinions about how to approach this or that, or how to learn and evolve. But you know what I also do too? I also learn from the younger generation. I don't just learn from the older ones. So curiosity doesn't mean looking up to those that have that infinite amount of wisdom ahead of you. It's also learning what's new and relevant from the younger people as well. All that knowledge. I think it's just to be curious, whatever industry you're in, whatever you want to do, have a healthy dose of curiosity and never stop asking those questions. And never be afraid to put your hand up and admit failure and admit I need some help. And I think that's probably one of the things I would have said I got along, and not say imposter syndrome, but make it look like I really know what I'm doing, but sometimes inside I'm just dying.
Sometimes you
I always,
gotta bullshit your way through it. You gotta bullshit your way through life, and actually,
right?
sometimes it works.
Yeah,
It doesn't-
absolutely. And you said learning as you go, right? And there's real strength and vulnerability. And you both have been so authentic through your journeys. And look where you are now.
Things are never perfect. It's a learning curve, but I can tell you mentally, my headspace is in a really good place. And I think you both know that too. So it's still healing is never overnight. It's always a journey, but definitely in a better headspace now. And I feel pretty smart now, not so stupid.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Questions you wanted to ask was how as I transition into the role I'm in right now with marketing and stuff and tourism. I guess to touch on that, I'm very proud to be in that space. So I was very much specializing in public relations at one point only, but now that I've taken on an account, so I look after destinations. I do destination marketing and PR for small cities. So I look after Monaco. So that's pretty glam. I get to go once a
That
year and
is
pretty
very glitzy and glamorous.
bougie. And all my friends give me crap for it. And I'm like, I'm going to Monaco for work. And they're like, what? I'm like, I know it sounds so up myself, but it's just not. And I'm looking after Brisbane, Australia now. That's my hometown. So we won that pitch last year. So it's really a very full circle moment to represent home. Even in the last 1 year, I've seen myself even evolve in my role. I always thought that I'm just pure PR centric person, but now I'm actually doing strategy, marketing strategy, digital marketing strategy. I'm building partnerships, doing campaigns, extending my networks, and I'm still learning and growing. And I'm going to be 44 soon, learning about airlines, learning how aviation works, how much profits made on the plane versus and different, how would I put it, like different consumer behaviors in different parts of Southeast Asia. So I'm still learning and growing, and it's fantastic. And I'm also very highly involved in community tourism. So I volunteer since last year in Nepal to go and bring up journalists for this particular community tourism company. So I try to keep myself involved in that aspect of things as well, because I'm very much about people and heart and about doing travel being a force of good. So yeah, that's my update in that space. And I'm still developing that as I go along. I suppose I wish I was already a director or something, because I'm at the age where I should be maybe a director of something. But you know what? Everyone's time and space, your own timeline, your own pace, what makes you happy. You don't have to compare yourself to anyone. Like sometimes what you're on social media and I'm this and all that, it's something different behind the scenes. So as long as you know what you're able and you're genuine about it and you're happy with what you're doing, at what level you're at, and at what income you're earning, then you make your peace with that. For me, now I'm trying to work on my inner peace. It's my compass to navigating happiness and to navigating unhappiness, anger, sadness, and all that. But as long as So I'm imagining this machine in my body, it turns north, south, east, west. So whichever way the river flows, I'll go with it. But as long as I come back to my inner peace, knowing this is where I'm at in my life.
Oh my goodness, I love that, Choy. That's awesome.
Please, fantastic ladies. If you can afford it, please get a therapist. It's so good for personal
Yeah.
growth and development. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
coaches too. They're just their weight in gold. Yeah.
If you can't obviously afford to pay for those things, there are a lot of support groups online that you can also find and seek things from, or you might be through a friend or a connection of yours. You just spend time with them, have a coffee with them, and develop that rapport and learn from them. And I think a big thing, May and I agree too, is you can actually learn a lot from everyday heroes. Not you don't just study his. Karen knows this, like our late dad was my hero. He was like the epitome of passion and love and grace in this world. And he wasn't some CEO or whatever.
I remember the core memory for me of the impact I want to make on this world was the day of our dad's funeral. And I remembered because, as you know him, he's Mr. Man of few words, very quiet man. He was actually in a very high ranking role in a civilian job, but he just never spoke about it. He was just so humble and quiet.
Yes.
Loves his $2 buns from the bakery shop. And I remember at his funeral, so many people turned up, which we did not expect. I remember seeing one of his ex-colleagues turned up, and he was actually our old taekwondo teacher. I remembered I had not seen him in 30 years, and he stood in front of my dad's coffin, looking very forlorn. And again, I've not seen this guy in 30 years. Again, taekwondo teacher who's like aggressive with lessons, and he looked like he was on the verge of tears. And I said to him, "Are you okay?" And he went, "You have no idea what your dad's done for me. He was my mentor. He taught me everything I knew." I remember seeing the amount of outpouring of love and wishes for him on his funeral. I remember telling myself, you know what? This is how I'm going to exit this world. That people are going to remember me just like that. Everyone remembered what my dad was. They said, we will never forget him. So I always tell my friends and even my husband, I say, our house and our cars and our money doesn't go to the ground with us. What we leave behind is a lasting legacy and impact of goodness and humility. And that's where I want to be. So I'm in my IDGAF era. Like, I really don't give a as long as I only care about the relationships that surround me, obviously my marriage, my children, my sister, my best friends, my community, my colleagues. I only care about those optimum relationships about me. But I also remember that I want to leave this world a good person. And that is how I want to leave this world. No one's going to remember that, oh my God, she once interviewed Michael Bublé. She once danced with the Backstreet Boys. No one's going to remember any of that. Everyone's going to say, you know what? May loved me. She made me feel special. And she was a good person. And that's all I care about. And I just want to be remembered by my children as she was a great mom. So that is how I view myself in this world. Like, I don't really give a shit about the surface stuff anymore at all. Zero. I don't care.
And isn't it such a beautiful space to be in?
Oh my God, yes, it's so nice. Actually, how all the 20-something-year-olds or the teens or even some who are struggling in their 30s, it's so nice to get to this level of consciousness and self-awareness where you really don't give a shit what people think about you. It's so nice. I used to be such a people pleaser. And I would literally go out my way to do something for someone, knowing inside it was not giving me peace. Like Choy said, it didn't give me inner peace. Right? Oh, because I was conformed to this, be a good girl, you need to do everything for everybody. And it would just disrupt my peace, disrupt my mental health, and I would feel resentful all day. Now, I still love doing, it's me, Karen, I still love doing things for people. I will go out of my way for the ones I love. But I will not go out of my way for people who don't really have my back. You know what I mean? And it's like I said, it's nice to be in this piece of space. There's days where if people tell me, hey, I miss you, can we go for a drink? I'll go, I'm sorry, I need to rot. I need to Netflix and sit in my stinky PJs and eat my McDonald's and drink my Diet Coke and just binge watch because I need that now. And it's so nice to be in that era where I don't feel
to be confident to say that is great.
Yes, and I don't feel any obligation to please anybody for the sake of pleasing. The only people I go out of my way for are my 2 daughters. I do anything for them. I will lose sleep over them. But besides that, even sometimes with Choy, she'll go, what are you doing? I love you. I'm tired. Thank you. And vice versa. She does the same. Sorry lah, I cannot. And you know what? It's okay. It's holding that space for your inner peace. You just do what fits you and what keeps you happy. And you know that you're not being a bad person, you're not offending, you're just, I guess at this age, I'm an over communicator. I'll just say it. I'm just be like, sorry, I don't want to come out tonight. I'm really tired, or I have had a lot going on. And if people get angry, I didn't get in touch. Sorry, I am busy. I am busy. Girls, you have to get to this IDGAF era. It is so nice. If I could tell anyone, I
Liberating.
look forward to getting older, because I used to always think, how do these old people get into this space? Or I don't give a shit, honestly, like whatever. I'd be like, that's so rude. Why are they like that? I was thinking this when I was a kid, right? I get it now.
Yeah.
Hindsight though, I know we don't give a we in our own personal lives we can have this IDGAF, whatever you call it, but I think when it comes to work, it's a very fine line to tread.
I'm talking about my personal life. I wasn't talking about work, Choy. I have to be accountable at work. Are you kidding? I have to give AF at work. I'm talking about my personal life. Work is a completely different story. I am a very hard worker.
Old school that way. I think I know the younger generation is very good at saying no and boundaries with work, but I think we are from that generation where we still have to go with certain things when
We
it
still
comes
go the extra miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
on, you got to go the extra
Yeah.
mile for sure.
Ladies, okay, one last question. So, given what you've just shared, what advice would you give to the Gen Z about evolving personal brands, especially during like career transitions or career pivots?
I think the Gen Z has the upper hand on this already. They're very good at building their personal brand on social media. And that sometimes with certain content creators that I look at, or individuals, not even say content creator, they're just a regular person, but they got following. They're very certain about their brand and what voice they have and what style they do. I think it's very good in terms of what they, but that's also personal brand in a social media space, right? Sometimes I don't know if that correlates to actual personal brand in person. That sometimes there is a discrepancy in what you put out and what actually is existing. I think I would be correct to say this for Gen Z is that I think there's a lot of worth in their value on social media because that's the red generation they're brought up in, right? Whether I get the views, the likes, the engagement, not even from a content creator perspective, even from a social perspective, there's a lot of that self-validation that comes from that. I would say really just cut that noise out and just be aware that it's just a space for you to put something out there, but that's not your. So I think if it comes to your own personal branding, because also Gen Z has access to the knowledge that we are now accessing in our 40s. They're accessing it earlier than us. So they're actually going to evolve a little bit faster than us because they already have this knowledge. But sometimes too, when you have a young mind and a young body, soul, you take everything so intensely, right? And I think with age, there comes that softness and that grace and that wisdom, and that's still evolving. We're not trying to stay stuck in our state as well. We're trying to keep and grow. I would say mentorship is a very good one because if you're in your 20s, I think it's good to learn from somebody in their 30s and their 40s, and then you can take and apply that to yourself. I think also when you're young, you tend to sometimes form hard judgment about certain things. Saying it's a progressive person and you're well aware about and conscious about what's happening in the world, but sometimes your view is very linear because when you're young, you have the extra inch of passion to win. No, add a little of that softness and be willing to move and evolve as time goes on because when you're young, your views also will evolve and change along the way. Sometimes what you think you know at 25, you actually may change when you're 45 and you may have more grace about that. It's just be open to evolving your mindset and definitely I think I have good learning points from your mentors, self or personal branding. But if anyone out there wants to give me a crash course on branding for social media, I'm happy to take that because I think I'm lacking a lot of, they know how to put the voice out to get the view and the engagements and all that and really make an impact.
What about your professional brand in a office, like corporate capacity?
Go and get your skills upgraded. Make effort to go for trainings and certifications. For example, in my work, 3 years ago, my boss made the smart decision to get all of us certified by the GSTC Council in Sustainable Tourism. So we actually took an 8-week course and learned about what are the different pillars and facets of sustainable tourism so that we can apply that knowledge. Especially my work is very agency based. So we sometimes still do a lot of pitching for destinations to represent them and what we can do for their marketing, blah, blah. So we try to always add in an element of sustainable tourism. And then we think about ideas and concepts that we can apply to elevate the brand of the destination, so via some channels of sustainable tourism. So we got certified in that, which is great. And it's from the GSTC Council. They're basically the #1 council in the world organization to get certification for sustainable tourism. I also did a recent marketing course for my own personal job 2 years ago. And actually, the guy was really smart. He taught us how to create a marketing and branding strategy using AI. And
Awesome.
that was so brilliant. So when it comes to work, if there's opportunity to keep upgrading your skills, just and with a certificate. I know Singapore's got the SE skills thing that you can utilize the X amount of dollars you can get if you're a PR or Singaporean. Yeah, go for courses, go for conferences. If they're like, hey, we're inviting you to a conference, and for example, it's learning all about community tourism and sustainable tourism, go and learn from the day, go and learn from tastemakers, leaders, thought leaders, go and just sit there and absorb the information. So from that professional I would say always think about constantly upgrading your skills because one day you're 25 and Gen Z now. One day you're going to be 45 and you're competing with Gen Alpha. And it's going to be completely different. So it's more to keep staying consistent. And what's that word?
Relevant.
You've got
Yeah.
to stay. And that's a constant thing that you need to do.
I think for me, it's just always observe around you. It's just always about observing others around you and see if they make mistakes, how do they fix their mistakes? And that's how, like I said, my job has really been like learning on the job. I don't think I can take a degree for this. In my job is really learning. I think mostly learning from your mistakes. I've made some mistakes. But it's about how you come back from those mistakes, right? And what you apply from that. I think it's always good to never be defensive. I think it's always good to be open. It's hard to not be defensive sometimes, but I think it's always good to try and see other perspectives. And for me, it's not as transparent as Choy's job because that I feel has a lot of skills that she actually needs to learn to upgrade. For me, I probably need to mostly upgrade my Excel skills because my Gen Z colleague goes, Miss May Wan, that's really dinosaur what you're doing. And
Got to learn somewhere. It is all good.
remember, I was a mom for a long time. I didn't go near an Excel chart. I didn't go near freaking Excel for, I don't know, 20 years or more than that. But yeah, it's always nice to learn. I learned from her. She's Gen Z, but she's taught me so much. It's our choice. So that's only my take on that. It's just observe and learn. Yeah, and just learn from your mistakes.
Like I'm now about to embark on this big social media campaign for my job. And I've been trying to learn the lingo, talking to my creative agency and talking to our partner. And I'm sorry, I mean it this way. So it's actually told the wheels in my brain that maybe I should go and do a course in social media marketing. Not the basic stuff, but just get to know how ads are run, the posts, analytics,
Lingo, everything.
do like a course and just get that out of the way because I still sound like I know what I'm talking about. So I think that will be my next step to get my skills upgraded.
Free courses that are really good online. Obviously, it's a minefield out there, but there are so many accessible courses out there.
I remember when I was in my first job and I was basically in the management team. They literally made me in management. Like I didn't start. Can you imagine you're thrown into the deep end of corporate, but yet you're actually in the management team? And I remember going to those weekly meetings and looking at financial reports and P&Ls. And I remember going, I don't know what the hell I'm doing or what I'm reading. But again, it was just sitting there observing. I actually learned a lot by listening to my colleagues, listening to the words they use, some of the abbreviations, how they speak to clients, how they speak to colleagues. And that's how I applied a lot of the skills I have now. So sometimes it's just that, really. But yeah, I really should go and get that Excel upgrade.
Ladies, sorry, are
2005.
there any last words?
Thank you so much for having us. I don't think I've ever really shared my story.
No, this is prime time. This is amazing. Thank you.
All I can say is life gives you lemons and you make lemon juice from it. You just take every obstacle as a blessing, because everything, whoever, if you want to grow as a person, I feel you never stop practicing self-awareness, never stop practicing empathy
Mm.
for yourself, empathy and compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
That is, I feel, a very important step to growing as a person, as a woman in today's time. Learn from me. I am your example. It is never too late to start anywhere. It is never too late. For actually, you know what I feel? Sometimes I think starting at 41 was the best thing for me, because Choy said, I became a mom. I was the ultimate manager. You don't understand. No, I was the CEO, I was the CFO, I was the CMO, I was the COO of my entire household. And all that skill set actually helped so much in the corporate world, because I also became very thick skinned. I had to deal with crying children for years and years. My patience was tested. So I feel sometimes if you do it the other way around, it actually is beneficial, because you go back into the job completely ready to tackle anything. And because I've gone through a crazy custody battle, throw anything at me, honey. I don't give. If I've been through that, nothing else matters. So that's my advice to you, is just have empathy and compassion for yourself, and just through sheer grit, just get up and find the strength to do it. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Very beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
But thanks
Okay.
for having us. It's been
Thank
very nice
you.
to actually join.
Ladies, this has been such a beautiful segment. I cannot wait to share this with the community. Lots of pearls of wisdom
Love
for
you.
you both. And we're very grateful. So thanks again.
Been a pleasure
Cannot
also,
wait
Karen.
to see cannot wait to see both your journey thrive even further. So thank you.
And Karen, it's been an absolute pleasure growing up with you.
Oh, thank you.
We've been best friends since 22.
Yeah.
And it's been very beautiful for three of us to watch each other's journey. So do you remember us being young, judgmental 21-year-olds getting drunk every weekend? And now here we are having a podcast as 40-somethings with so much wisdom to share. So it's been a pleasure to grow up with you. And that's a gift. Not everyone can grow with their best friends. And we did. We did.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Have a good evening, ladies. And
Love you.
thanks again.